Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauraby or Maddie, and today I am reading chapter 15 of #Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. Let's get right into it. Dee opened her mouth to reply, but the words stuck in her throat. If she told Niles the truth that Gucci Hangman was somehow tied to her sister's murder, she'd be trusting him with some portion of her past. And not only was trusting strangers not her forte, but it also didn't end well. But the alternative, trying to prove her innocence on her own, seemed impossible. She knew almost nothing about the island, and if there were really a way to stay alive on Alcatraz 2.0, she was going to need Niles' help to find it. Blair's death had something to do with my stepsister's murder. I think Gucci Hangman was trying to send me a message. Niles stared at her for a moment, eyes unreadable, and then he gave an almost imperceptible nod of his head. Instantly, the blender switched off, and the room fell silent. Dee wasn't sure if she should say something else and risk a lip plant from Niles, or just sit quietly. She chose the latter. "Allow me, milady," Ethan said. He grabbed 4 glasses from the shelf and plopped them on the counter beside Griselda, who poured out the liquefied concoction. Ethan grabbed a glass the instant she was finished and chugged it, then coughed, spraying milkshake all over the counter. Brain freeze. Holy crap. Dying. Griselda ignored him. She rounded the corner and set 2 milkshakes on the table in front of Dee and Niles, sloshing icy brown gunk all over the place. "Well?" Dee was pretty sure she was talking to Niles. He stared at the table, contemplating his glass. "Ethan," he began slowly, "how many calories did you say are in one of these?" Ethan scrunched his mouth to the side and held up his fingers, taking them off like he was doing math in his head. "A lot." "So much for math." "That was my thought exactly." He pushed a glass toward Dee, as if he wanted to make sure she had some. "I'm afraid this is going to require an extra long workout this afternoon. A jog around the island, perhaps?" "Definitely," Ethan replied. Niles leaned in. "You'll join, yes?" Running wasn't exactly something Dee did voluntarily, but the sharp look in Niles' eyes practically begged her to say yes. Sure?" "Excellent." He polished off the rest of his milkshake, then rose from his chair. "Shall we say 4 o'clock at the gym?" Dee's afternoon at ice cream was weird. On some level, it felt like a normal job at a normal ice cream parlor that any 17-year-old anywhere in the country might have. Griselda directed Dee through cleaning and restocking the cooler, checking inventory for the walk-in freezer in the back, polishing the floors, wiping down tables, washing dishes. It was all pretty mindless, bordering on mundane, but also totally bizarre. For instance, they had a steady stream of customers, thankfully no Rodrigo, all of whom Griselda seemed to know. And though the tables were filled, aside from a quick hello before ordering, and several Calistine glances in Dee's direction, which she absolutely noticed, no one interacted. Everyone sat alone, avoided eye contact, and refused to strike up a conversation with Dee, Griselda, or any of the other patrons. Then there was the giant TV running non-stop replays of Blair's murder. Dee couldn't avoid the sounds. Gucci's synth pop soundtrack, his booming voice, Blair's strangled response, and the repulsive sucking sound Blair's head made when Gucci planted it on the cushion beside her body. But she tried to keep her eyes away from the screen. Sometimes she'd catch a glimpse of Blair's head catapulting through the air like a diseased pig carcass, flung over the walls of a besieged castle by a medieval turbine? I don't know. It was uncanny how Dee always seemed to see the same clip, a super slow-mo shot of the decapitation. The postman ran it forward and backward, and even had a version where the image toggled between frames as Blair's head was severed. Arrows and diagrams pointed to the various tendrils of gore protruding from her neck and her skull like a fucked up anatomy lesson in one of Niles's pre-med courses. The fan art and GIFs trending in the comments sidebar were out of control. There was even one GIF showing Cinderella standing beside Blair's head as it cascaded through the air, staring at its underside as if in disbelief. The implication was clear. Blair's death was in retaliation for Dee's successes in quotes, against Slayer. And then there was this cloud of secrets hanging over her head about 3 dozen times during her shift. When the shop was momentarily empty, Dee was about to ask Griselda what the hell was going on. The cloak and dagger crap was wigging her out, and she had so many questions, she was about ready to explode. But she didn't explode or ask Griselda. Instead, she scooped and scrubbed and blended and counted until her anxiety was too much to bear. Then she attempted small talk while Griselda took inventory during a lull. It's pretty quiet in here now. If being forced to listen to your boss getting murdered over and over again counts as quiet to you, then yes. Point to Griselda. Dee tried again. There are more people in Alcatraz 2.0 than I realized. Only 27 now. Griselda replied, her eyes fixed on her clipboard. There were 48 when I arrived, over 100 when Niles got here. More than 100 down to 27? That seemed weird. But Dee wasn't about to waste a question on it. Griselda's patience with her was already wearing thin. What did you do? Dee asked, not even sure she wanted to know. To get here. Griselda snorted. Well, that was something, a reaction other than snark. She tossed her inventory clipboard down on the counter and planted her hands on her hips, 6 months ago, I supposedly murdered my college roommate and boyfriend after I caught them having sex. It was a crime of passion and jealousy, full of kinky details. She paused, leaning in. I slit their throats while they were asleep. Oh. She straightened up, grabbed her clipboard, and returned to her task. Of course I didn't do it. I mean, would I have slit their throats if I had given a shit that they were begging? Totally. But I'm way hotter than Julie ever was. And besides, Jasper wasn't even my boyfriend. Just this dude I did some hacking with once in a while. He was pretty basic. Library systems, low security shit. Not in my league at all. But he had a big dick. And sometimes a girl just needs a big dick. I definitely wasn't in love with him. Like that bitch face shrink said I was during my trial. He wasn't my type. These were more words than Griselda had spoken to Dee in the almost 24 hours they had known each other. And Dee didn't know if Griselda was fucking with her or if she just really, really enjoyed talking about herself. Probably both. 3:45, Griselda said, Griselda said, changing topics abruptly. Time for your workout, princess. Even though it was an hour until closing, Griselda locked up the shop, just as Blair had done the night before. Dee wondered if this was against the rules, and whether it would be reflected in their weekly money rations. But at that moment, she didn't care. She was pretty sure this whole go for a long jog business was a cover. And she was ready to find out what Niles, Griselda, and Ethan already knew about the island. The building that housed the gym looked as if it had once been a hardware store with a raised step for a window display, low ceilings, and only a half a dozen pieces of equipment, including a set of rusty free weights, a treadmill that would probably fall apart at a slow walking pace, and a rowing machine that might have been made of wood. Not that Dee had been to many workout facilities in her day, but she was pretty sure this one sucked. Ethan lay on a weight bench doing chest presses. He anchored the bar and sat up as they entered. Welcome to the party, pal. Party? Dee asked. Niles emerged from the back, dressed in long warm-up pants and a zip-front hoodie. It's from an action movie, he explained. Remember? Ethan likes to quote them. Ad nauseum. Not ad nauseum, Ethan said cheerfully. That's from Die Hard. My favorite. Or my fave. Kill me, Griselda muttered. Ethan beckoned Dee to the back room. Come on, let's get you suited up. He managed to find Dee some workout clothes that almost fit. The skin-tight yoga pants were 2 sizes too small and hugged her thighs and butt so tightly she must have looked like a lumpy sausage shoved into an undersized casing. Thankfully, Ethan also found her a sweatshirt, an XXL sweatshirt. It required 3 rolls on each sleeve just to find her hands, and it hung like a tunic, hitting mid-quad. But at least the hideous pants stitch was hidden. The only thing that fit were the beat-up running shoes, sporting mismatched laces, and a strip of duct tape along one shoe to keep the seams from splitting. Meanwhile, Griselda looked gorgeous, of course. She wore light leggings and long-sleeve runner's shirt that fit her like they had literally been custom made for her body, highlighting every perfect curve and graceful angle. And the black shirt enhanced the blondness of her hair and the blueness of her eyes. Dee looked frumpy in comparison, but she reminded herself that it didn't matter. Who was she trying to impress anyway? Not Ethan, and certainly not Niles. They started out on a slow jog from the gym, heading straight down Main Street toward the north end of the island. The gym was the last of the fake businesses on the strip, nestled beside several boarded-up storefronts, old-fashioned single-story buildings with rock siding and large windows. Beyond that was another open area, though unlike the soccer and baseball facilities near the barracks, it looked more like an abandoned, overgrown lot than a sports field. The cameras, per usual, were everywhere. Even the deserted storefronts were each adorned with a crow-shaped atrocity that slowly rotated as they passed, and Dee began to despair of ever finding a camera-free oasis on Alcatraz 2.0. She did her best to keep up with her obviously more athletic colleagues. Ethan jogged like a leashed puppy, desperate to be untethered. He kicked his knees high in front of him, as if attempting to get more of a workout than the relatively slow pace would allow, and every few minutes he'd sprint 100 yards ahead of them, then turn and jog back. If he had been a different type of guy, Dee would have thought he was showing off, but Ethan was more of a hyperactive child than your average gym-obsessed 20-something, and Dee really believed he needed to burn off the energy. Niles and Griselda paced each other, running side by side in Stepford like unison. Dee was more aware than ever about how perfectly suited they were for each other. Tall, good-looking, in shape. They even had matching blonde hair. She might have thought they were siblings if she hadn't known better. Dee lagged behind, struggling with both the exercise and the ill-fitting clothing. The ill-fitting clothes. The sweatshirt swamped her, the pants constricted, and with every step her legs felt heavier, like she was running through wet cement. The field gave way to industrial remains. A large pile of dirt rose like a hillock beside a row of cylindrical concrete silos that might once have been a water treatment plant. The remains of metal trailers and shipping containers, rusted and ripped at the seams. The wind and rain lay scattered across this end of the island, which clearly had not been reclaimed as part of the postman's plans for Alcatraz 2.0, and Dee wondered if this section, like the warehouses to the east where she had woken up in a Cinderella dress yesterday afternoon, housed the kill rooms of the Paniacs. Dee was too busy theorizing about her surroundings to realize that the road in front of her had come to an abrupt end until she plowed directly into Niles's back. "Sorry," she said, panting and stumbling to regain her balance. Niles looped a wary but strong arm around her waist to keep her to keep her upright. You're grand. Might be good to keep your eyes in front of you, though. Right, she said, steadying herself. Good idea. She looked around and noticed that a 12-foot high chain link fence blocked the road. A rusted and warped warning sign clung stubbornly to it. Biohazard, quarantine, authorized personnel only. Where are we? Dee whispered. This, Ethan said, pulling away a cutaway portion of chain link, is the end of the world. And that is the end of chapter 15. It is starting to get interesting. I wonder where they are. I guess we'll find out next chapter. Until then, bye-bye.